Yeah. It's interesting when I have conversations with biotech founders who are reflecting on sort of the partnership opportunity out there, the funding opportunity out there. I get a mixed bag of reviews on whether the market is receptive right now or at any given point to platforms, to specific targets and products, AI, ML. I mean, everybody loves that if it's working effectively. What's your sense right now of sort of market receptivity to the platform concept versus the lead compound that you're working on?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And I mean, when we started, or when I started with this business, platform was key, right? At that time, people invested or primarily invested in companies who had a platform or have access to a platform. Then all the biotech crisis came, right? A downturn came and all these things. And this was also beginning of COVID, 2020, 2021, right? So in this case, and the whole thing shifted to a much, much more de-risked model. So people wanted to have assets which are in the clinic. Phase 1, phase 2, in essence, basically, who kind of more de-risked than a platform early on assets, so to say.
Yeah.
Then you as basically as entrepreneur or as CEO of a company, you have to switch strategies because we invested in platform, right? And we wanted to have the run basically to develop a pipeline, to develop a portfolio and bring it to the clinic, etc. And this takes years, right?
Yeah.
The market condition shifts in much less than this many years, right? In half a year, the market condition was totally different. So we had to refocus, right? And this is where we refocused basically the company fully on the asset we have as a lead asset. We continue to do pipeline. We did some business deals with Boehringer Ingelheim in order to kind of substantiate and have access to additional resources. And this was basically where we then ended up in order to make the lead compound further successful, and we're actually able to bring it to a development candidate and now in the IND phase.
Yeah.
When you talk now to investors, basically what many want is a pipeline, a portfolio, and something in the clinic.
Of course they do. So, they want it all.
Exactly. So, and I mean, and even now in JP Morgan, we talk to companies, and then in the clinic is not good enough anymore either. So they want basically then clinical data, right? So which means end of phase 1, phase 1B, phase 2, whatever. And this goalpost shifting thing is interesting to maneuver, but it's from a cash runway perspective, it's relatively difficult because it's almost unplannable.
Yeah. All right. So I want to spend some time talking about the transition from R&D to clinical. But before we do that, let's just spend a little bit more time talking about that transition from, using AI and ML, developing a platform to sort of shifting the focus to the lead compound when you went through that phase. What did that mean from sort of a personnel and management standpoint for you as the leader of the company?
Well, you have to make hard decisions, right? In this time, and we also had to make decisions not only on the portfolio. We also had to make the decision on personnel, right? Because if you plan for a big portfolio, if you plan for a big pipeline, in a way, 5, 6, 7 drugs to develop more or less in parallel, you need a different set of scientists, right, in the company. Yeah. When you learn to need to focus, basically you focus your company on 1 or 2, what we did, basically assets, but also you need to kind of, in a way, focus your company, your hiring plan, your development plan from people and a resource perspective is very different, and then you need to take actions on this as well, right? And cut down on people, you cut down on the hiring plan, you really focus the company on all aspects in order to do this. And this is managerial, not easy, because not only it's hard decisions, it's also difficult to decide, so to say, when you have 2, 3 compounds in the lead, which one you want to process, right, forward and progress forward. And that's that was a lot of, let's say, strategic meetings, discussions, deep dive in data, in order to find basically the molecule we thought it's the one to go forward.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that molecule.
So we have a molecule now, basically what we do is T-cell bispecifics. It's essentially kind of an antibody format, which one arm kind of in a way engages with a peptide HLA expressed on tumor cells, and the other arm engages via CD3 with the T cells. So, and the molecule we identified comes from a patient who suffered colorectal cancer. And this was a patient who had this mismatch repair stable, MSS, colorectal cancer. And these cancers actually are generally not susceptible for IO. So any IO treatment in MSS has not been successful in the past. And but we identified this target, so to say, out of these patients, was high percentage in this patient, looked in how many other patients could have that, and really were surprised because 80 to 90% of colon cancer patients have this target. And then we got a little bit lucky here, if you want, right, in a way, with this target. And then we thought, okay, this is a big market because colorectal cancer, especially MSS, where IO is not working. In second and third line, there is not much available for these patients. You know, the PFS in first line is about a year. The PFS in second line is 6 months. In third line is 3 months. Yeah. So it goes very much down. So there's a high unmet medical need. So that kind of a couple of things came together where we thought this is a good target, right? And and the target is involved in DNA repair, in genomic stability. So it's very high expressed in tissues which proliferate. So by nature, tumor cancer is a high proliferating tissue, a high proliferating disease, if you want. So it's a high expressed target in this disease entity. You know, we also see it in normal tumors, this target, in much less frequency, and that's basically provides us a very good therapeutic window, you know, so that we feel we won't hit normal tissue, we won't hit normal expressing tissue, but we will definitely hit tumor tissue. Yeah. And that's where we kind of felt like that's a target which is worthwhile to pursue. As it is expressed in high proliferating tissue, it's not only in colorectal. We also see it in triple-negative breast cancer, we see it in non-small squamous, and a few others. And that, of course, again comes back to choices, right? Because we cannot run a phase 1 trial in 5 different indications.
Right.
So that's the second time you have to make, basically, to make a decision, what is your lead indication, right? And that's where we decided, as the high unmet medical need is in many of these indications, but we went for colorectal cancer.
So you made that decision, and your goal is to be in the clinic in 2026. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we are currently in the IND enabling phase. We are basically in the manufacturing part. So we manufacture this target at the moment with the CDMO, and we'll have an IND if everything goes okay by end of the year, early next, and then foresee our first patient being treated in early Q2 26.
What's the manufacturing environment look like for this particular molecule? I'm curious about, bispecifics are pretty sexy right now, if you will. Is the outsourced manufacturing community, is there capacity in this space?
There is certainly capacity. The thing is, on the other hand, for us, manufacturing became a de-risking situation, right? Because we didn't want to go to manufacturers who have no experience in manufacturing bispecifics, because that's a learning curve for them, and that's fine, right, in a way, and that's all good. But that poses for us a different risk, right? Because we work with someone who is not necessarily experienced in the field. So we went to the big guys, right, so to say, and looked at those who have done this in the past, who have shown they can do it, etc. And there is actually quite a lot of capacity available, right, in general for this. And the manufacturing takes a year, no matter with whom you talk. Right. So it's the same timelines, roughly.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about that management transition from research to manufacturing and in preparation for the clinic. What does that look like? And I want to kind of talk about that from a personnel standpoint, a funding standpoint, and maybe partnership standpoint, and whatever else. I mean, you're living it. So whatever other sort of dynamics or forces come into play, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's a great topic, because, as I said, when I joined 3T, we transitioned the company basically from a research platform into a product development company, right? We were looking into which product we are developing. Now we're facing essentially the second transition into a clinical stage biopharma. And the people who worked in 3T and still working in 3T, and we continue to need them, there's no change, very much researchers, right? They help to identify the targets, help to develop the targets, and basically protein scientists, protein engineers who really help to put this molecule, the complexity of the molecule together that it can be manufactured. Now going in the clinic, you need people with clinical development experience.
Yeah.
So we have to add on skills to the company which we didn't use and we didn't need before, right? So now kind of the company transitions again into more clinical stage part. We need to hire like people with a CMO background, right? We need people with clinical development experience, clinical operations, regulatory affairs, etc., etc. So those are the skill sets basically we need to add on at the moment. And they're not so easy to find.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about that because all we hear about is the sort of dearth in biotech talent. So what are you doing to solve that challenge?
So I mean, we certainly do this on we try to pursue it on many avenues, right? I mean, we're leveraging, of course, as much as we can personal networks, right? From previous companies we worked with and the other colleagues, so to say, looking into that. We're also engaging, of course, search firms, right, to help us with the right talent, because if you work in such specialized field, it doesn't help me if I find a clinical developer who has never done T-cell bispecifics, cell-based therapies or anything. So you need to find not the needle in the haystack, but you need someone who has the relevant skill set, right, in this one. And that's not so easy, right? Because if you want someone who come in and lead and put his stamp, so to say, on the program, I mean, we need one who has a better, relatively speaking, short learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what we're currently looking into. So to find a CMO, find a VP of clinical, looking for clinical operations. These people is our hiring plan for 2025.
Our friends at Alston & Bird set us up with some amazing space to record during JPM week. The firm's national healthcare and life sciences practice has more than 100 attorneys actively involved in the healthcare industry across the full spectrum of legal disciplines. The signature strength of this practice is its ability to master complex representations that draw on the coordinated expertise of its regulatory, compliance, public policy, transactional, corporate governance, securities, FDA, biotech, IP, government investigations, and litigation practice areas. Alston & Bird represents life sciences companies and their partners in corporate stages, ranging from private to newly public to well-established, and in a variety of stages of product development from preclinical to post-approval commercial launch. Learn more at alston.com and tell them you learned about them on the Business of Biotech.
Yeah, and that, I imagine that hiring up in anticipation of clinical development is sort of the tip of the spear on another inflection point, and that would be funding. You've got to
absolutely
first you got to pay for these people, then you're going to have to pay for some clinical trial activity, which is not inconsequential money. So tell me about preparations for that.
Yeah, I mean the money you need for research is not small, but it's compared to what you need for clinic, it's nothing, right? So because I mean manufacturing is easily double-digit millions, yeah, no question about it. I mean clinical trial is double-digit millions, so we need to kind of make sure we resource the company adequately in order to get through the clinical trial, right? It doesn't help me if I have money to get in the clinical trial but cannot finish it, right? That's not fair to the patient, as it's not fair to the investors, it's not fair to the company. So we need to be clear that we resource the company adequately for that. So we are now in the race of a B round, so we're targeting 80 to 100 million for that. We have raised from insiders who have been investing in the company previously, currently about 45 million. So let's say we're halfway through, to the fundraise. And we're using JP Morgan and, of course, also post JP Morgan and the next couple of months to close the round with another 40 to 50 million.
Yeah. What's proven perhaps challenging in that effort? I mean, you could come at it from any angle. Receptivity to an approach that has heretofore been unsuccessful, which could excite some investors, could turn some investors off, right? The shifting goalposts, what investors are looking for. What are you? I guess what's sort of the temperature of the investment community for this move into clinicals, and what maybe is standing in the way?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the T-cell bispecific is a, relatively speaking, new area, but it's not totally new, right? There is previous experience. For example, Immunocore was able to put Kimmtrak on the market for uveal melanoma, right? Which is very helpful because it shows it's possible, right? And it shows a molecule like that can actually really treat the disease or can retreat patients, right? There is others in development. This is more CTAs, cancer testis antigens, like a MHA4, MHA8, also PRAME. So these developments basically help. What is a bit like what we hear often is exactly where I think 3T can shine in this way is the cross-reactivity. Because the people are a little bit afraid with these molecules on side effects. These molecules are really, really active. So it's really a hot a molecule if you put into the patient, right? So what it binds, it kills. No matter if it's normal or no matter if it's tumor, right? Of course, you want tumor, you don't want the normal. But what you actually target is actually a kind of a 9, 10, 11 amino acids. It's a very small peptide. So the risk that you find a similar sequence or a homology based thing elsewhere in the body is not zero, because it's very small, right? So that you find something which is either equal or homology equal from a sequence or from a structural perspective. These two things we need to exclude. And in previous experience in the clinic, you have seen really very bad side effects. So one prominent example is MHA3. So people had a drug against MHA3, and then this had a cross-reactivity with titin. Titin is a molecule which is expressed in cardiomyocytes. So what happened, actually, the patients died on cardiogenic shock because the molecule killed the heart and not only the tumor. So, and there is other molecules where basically side effects, not of this magnitude, but similar side effects have been preventative of developing these tumors further, right? So, and that's where we think the platform we have helps, because we can kind of reduce these cross-reactivities in these molecules significantly compared to what has happened in the past. That's an uphill battle, right? In order to explain that to investors, because they know this data, right, and have seen this data. So to explain them that the molecule is, relatively speaking, safe. We will see side effects in the clinic, like CRS and a few other things, no doubt on this end. But we won't see these terrible side effects, right? What others have seen and have experienced. That's basically something you need to explain to investors, and this is not easy in the current market.
Yeah. What about balancing platform development and pipeline and clinical progress now, all sort of at the same time? How are you tackling that?
The focus currently, our main focus is certainly bringing the molecule into clinic, right, into the IND, and this is where probably 80% of the funding goes to. We are not disregarding pipeline and certainly not disregarding platform, because, as I told you, investors are more attracted to if you have a platform, you have a pipeline, and a molecule in the clinic or close to the clinic, right? So we try to fit the bill. And we try to make this a situation where we kind of be kind of in the sweet spot, if you want, for investors.
If that sweet spot moves around again, right? Which it will, inevitably, right? Like tomorrow, it could be like, forget about the platforms. We need molecules in clinic. We need clinical data. What do you do as the leader of the company to sort of obviate for that, to prepare for it and be in an agile position to shift if necessary? Is it even possible?
It is. As a platform company, it's actually relatively easy possible. Kind of, you can I wouldn't say you turn it down, but I mean, you can pause it, right? So the investment, you're not losing the platform in a way, but you can say, okay, we pause the target ID, which we have done to a large degree in the part we had to focus on the lead molecule, right? And now we would do similar things basically. So we kind of, if you want, putting less emphasis on the pipeline and on the platform. Certainly the highest investment and resources go in the development of the drug and bringing it into the clinic, because this is where the value is, right? This is where the value is in general. The second piece basically would be developing drugs which are coming after, the second and the third molecule. And then the pipeline, the target ID, we would then kind of really pause. And with the platform, as I mentioned before, this is not too difficult, right? And you're not destroying value directly, because you keep the platform alive, but you're not basically running it and running hundreds and thousands of samples over it.
Yeah. What does it take from a resource perspective to keep a platform alive? Because I mean, theoretically, it makes perfect sense, right? We've got the platform. We can always fall back to the platform, go back to the platform. What does it take to keep that platform alive and ready when called upon from a resource standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, you cannot basically let all the people go, right? Or thinking about of kind of stripping the company down to just clinical or so. This doesn't work, right? Because rehiring and retraining the people on a complex platform takes a lot more time than you think, right? So in that essence, you need to keep a core activity on the platform going, even if you don't do it, right? And I mean, in our case, it's actually we are kind of fortunate, if you want, because we're using the platform not only for target ID, we're also using it for de-risking. So in any molecule we bring to the clinic, we need trace, and the trace platform basically also for identifying cross-reactivities. So, and this is the minimal part of the platform we would leave alive, right? We would not do target ID, but we leave it for cross-reactivities. And this is just a different use of the platform, but it's still the same platform. So in this case, we're not losing people, we're not losing competencies, we're not losing expertise. We would just shift the resources to a different purpose of the platform.